GamerGate 2 is well underway and every single video game is being scrutinized, and that means there are a lot of rumors and speculation that circulate surrounding certain companies, like PlayStation, for example. And the new rumor on the street is that PlayStation Studios is seeking a non-white transgender actor to lead a new game, and the story will focus on how their culture does not accept women as leaders in their community. I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, of course, this is a rumor, right? So take it with a grain of salt, but we have seen a pattern when it comes to PlayStation for many years at this point, like many large video game companies, and this is definitely in the realm of possibility. This doesn't really sound like a stretch. It sounds like something that they would be planning for a future game, something that nobody wants. It says, according to a new whisper on the digital streets, Sony's PlayStation Studios is currently looking to develop a new game centered on a male-to-female transgender protagonist who seeks to prove herself against the misogynistic values of her culture. Now, of course, when it comes to video games, right, people want, sometimes, of course, things that represent real world situations and the real world in general. Sometimes we like farming simulators. Sometimes we like Grand Theft Autos and their crime simulators because most of us don't do crime. But at the same time, you are adding layer after layer after layer of issue here. If we simply had a game that focused on a female who might live in a culture where, yeah, it's a little misogynistic, but that wasn't the focus of the story, and that was just like an undertone to her larger adventure, then it might have been able to work out if she was extremely well written. But hearing misogynistic values of her culture, male to female transgender, trying to prove herself, and it's her against the world, it's just too many slices. It says word of this title's development was first raised just a couple of days ago, courtesy of the noted Spanish language PlayStation fan news account Noti Play. Now, of course, this is not a person who has leaked a lot of information in the past. They do have quite a following on Twitter/X. So, of course, while this could definitely be fake, it could be absolutely not true. When you really look at the games that PlayStation Studios has created and the ones that they're creating in the future that they've already announced, it really doesn't seem like that much of a stretch. I mean, look at Concord, right? This is a game that is PlayStation Studios that they only announced 3 weeks ago, and every single character is diverse, they're inclusive, they have pronouns, and it just looks like a very generic Overwatch 5v5 hero shooter. But that's the type of content that PlayStation Studios is focused on creating. Now, of course, PlayStation has a lot of money to throw at a lot of different projects, and sometimes they probably get people to start brainstorming a game that doesn't go through, so this may not eventually exist. But at the same time, the details are that a casting call went out, and the account explained that the game was looking to feature a girl of 20 to 30 years of age, of dark skin and transgender, who was an expert in knives as its protagonist. So we are just talking about clown world here. Of course, it's fine to be looking for like a female of color, but then you add transgender, and then you add like a specific an expert in knives caveat. It's just not going to turn out well for them. It says further, they noted that its story would also center on how their culture does not accept women as leaders in their community. Met with an understandable wave of skepticism in response to their post, they would return to the topic later to clarify some things. They said it was never a bait, it is 100% real. The info was taken from a page where you have to register to see the casting calls, and there are also like Ubisoft, Activision, other SIE games. I claim that it is a PlayStation Studios game because the casting director's history 99% of the time has worked for Square Enix Entertainment. And at this point, we have not figured out who this casting director is, but it does seem like it's probably going to be figured out relatively soon. And, of course, to this end, while we do not know if this account's, rumors trustworthy, if we look at some of the things that has happened at, Sony and with PlayStation over the past couple of years, it looks like it could be real. I mean, for example, the Naughty Dog's The Last of Us Part 2, one of Abby's traveling companions, Lev, was created and portrayed as a transgender individual. Their voice actor, Ian Alexander, themselves identifies as non-binary. Then in 2023, the Crash Bandicoot series received its first non binary character in the form of Catbat, a new fighter created for Toys for Bob's Crash Team Rumble. And then, of course, most recently, we saw Concord, which has, of course, awful character designs, looks like they're trying to appeal to a modern audience, as they love to call them. It's just checkmarking diversity. And yeah, I mean, looking at their track record over just the past couple of years, it is not going to go well for them if this is the direction that they continue down. Now, we also have to take into consideration who is this game being made for, right? Because I, as a woman, am not interested in playing as someone with all of these, descriptors, these specifications, right? A girl, 20 to 30 years of age, dark skin, transgender, I mean, has to go through this battle against misogyny. Like, these are just not stories that I personally would want to experience. And I know there are many people out there who are not going to want to either. Of course, when it comes to storytelling, right, these creatives are allowed to tell the story they want, but we are also allowed to heavily criticize them if we are not interested in what they're creating. And over the past couple of years, we've gotten so many stories about strong, independent women going against misogynistic values that I just don't see any way that this is going to, sell like hotcakes. I don't see a way that this is going to make them the money that they expect at this point. They have had some really big hits. I mean, PlayStation is a household name because they have created so many great games in the past and created so many good consoles, but at the same time, you can't expect people to blindly stand by and swipe their credit card just because Sony has created it, just because it's on a PlayStation. And that's the problem that we are seeing, is that they are not creating games for the audience they already have. They are creating games for the vocal minority of people. They are creating games for the 2% of people in the industry who would play something like this. And when it releases and they've put $100 million into it and it ends up being one of their, worst selling games ever, we're going to point and we're going to laugh because they had an opportunity to put all of that money towards something that people would actually want to play, something like Stellar Blade, for example, where you don't have a lead character who's questioning her gender and going through transitions and happens to, want to fight against misogyny. And unfortunately for us as gamers, it doesn't look like Sony is learning their lesson with all of these awful games that have released that have pushed nonsense like non-binary and pronouns. And it just seems that they're really not caring about what we have to say, which is fine for a lot of people because it means that we don't care if we don't spend our money on their trash upcoming games. I think the worst that they're creating right now is Concord. That comes out in a couple of months in August. So I don't think this game is going to sell well. As you can see, it's gotten absolutely obliterated. 5.9K likes to 54,000 dislikes on this one single trailer. So things are not going very well for PlayStation right now. And of course, it will be interesting to see if we get any other information on this, leak, on this alleged rumor. If anyone comes out and confirms it, if we can find the casting director, and maybe if PlayStation actually announces this in the near future. Only time will tell, but for now, that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.